Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody, Militia Man and Crew. I'm just going to jump into tonight's show, and I hope you guys will enjoy it because there's really been some really good information out today. And what I like to also say is that sometimes you still have to be careful on some of the data that you get, even if it comes from experts. And yes, we still use expert information, and we still use the Prime Minister's advisors and all of that. But sometimes you have to think about what's going on and having a good study, and that's why Patreon is so powerful and has so much value. Is because of the nature of it. You can go through all the news, and you can get a collective body of what's being said, what has been said by the sources. The best sources to me are the central bank, the Ministry of Finance, Tate Sammy, for instance. You want to listen to what she has to say. The advisors from the Prime Minister al-Sudani, al-Nasuri, Mohammed Saleh, those folks are the real source. And even sometimes they seem to be, on times, may not be giving you the whole picture. And one of the reasons why I believe is because the Central Bank of Iraq can't always tell you exactly what they're going to do, but they give you education. We've said it many times. They give you the education all the way through the process, but the last thing they're ever going to do is going to tell you that we're going to revalue the currency tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, or anything like that. They're just not. But the good thing is that the data that we get and the news that you get is really a reflection of everyone, which is meaning like a broad spectrum. What do you have? You have the United States Treasury, the Federal Reserve, you have the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank. Even on occasion we hear from the WTO, we hear about the ICE quota system that they have for taxes at the borders. We hear about electronic payments. We hear about the Rafidain Bank, the state banks. We hear about Rashid. Those are state banks, and we hear about their electronic payment systems. Okay, and we also hear about many other little bits and pieces that come into the story. And why are they important? Is because having time spent studying this, if you haven't, and you don't have all those little bits and pieces, sometimes the news really does give a reflection of, like this gentleman here today, specialist details the mechanism for implementing the strategy to address the shadowy economy in Iraq. Well, what is a shadowy economy? Well, the shadow economy is a parallel market. Okay, it's an illegal market. So keep that in mind. So the government decides to adopt it and includes unregistered economic activities. Well, unregistered economic activities. Well, we all know that. It's been going on for years. But what have they been working on? They've been working on getting rid of that for years. A couple of years at least, right? So anyway, this gentleman, his name is Al-Saidi. He says the Iraq's government's adoption of a strategy to address the shadow economy represents a pivotal step, probably not wrong, towards reforming the economic system in a serious attempt to contain one of the biggest structural challenges the country has been facing for decades. The shadow economy, which includes all economic activities that are not registered and not subject to government oversight, constitutes a large percentage of Iraq's gross and domestic product and is often larger than the formal economy. Probably all true. Okay? This makes it difficult for the state to control the flow of funds and deprives it of important sources of public funding, such as tax revenues. Okay, again, I brought in the ICE quota system. How long have they been working on that, and how far along are they? The Rafidain Bank is talking about the ability to do electronic payments, etc., at taxation. The government's talking about having that ability to increase their revenue stream because of what he's talking about already. Okay? Okay, it says the decision is not only part of efforts to regulate the local economy, but it's also directly linked to international. So it's got an international component and regional obligations that are related to combating money laundering and terrorist financing. You guys remember me talking about the FIMA, Financial International Monetary Authority, and the currency manipulation law. Those were all done in 2020. Those were in place internationally in 2020. So it says here, though, he goes on and says the informal economy is viewed as a fertile ground for practices due to weak oversight and a lack of transparency in financial transactions. Absolutely, that's exactly what was happening. Therefore, addressing this type of economy, he goes on and says that it means not only regulating markets, but also protecting Iraq's financial and economic security. Well, of course, that's all it's going to do, all that. But he goes on and adds, he goes, the benefits of the strategy will be numerous if implemented effectively. It will contribute to expanding the tax base, improving the efficiency of resource allocation, and raising the level of transparency, which will subsequently stimulate local and foreign investment. It will also enhance the integration of broad segments of society, especially those working in the financial sector, into the social protection and insurance network, which will mean reducing poverty, inequality in the long term. But he also goes on and says that effectively that his turn is that still needs to be done if they get to this pivotal area. Well, in my view, they have done it, and why would you bring this up at this time and put it out in a manner that is telling you exactly what I just said, that this is what they've already done effectively, but had a little bit of a negative twist to it. So anyway, I'm going to move on, but the shadow economy is what has fed the parallel market, but we see that drying up quickly, and I'll get to the next article that will kind of talk about that indirectly, but it is a very key component and very important component, is because the parallel market is an illegal market. I think you guys probably been around long enough to know that one of our previous members and guests that was on our show had really good connections, and everybody, enjoyed his company, right? But the bottom line is that one of the components that he talked about, because of his contacts and ours, know that the parallel market, when they talked about getting rid of the dollar auction, which they've done, in my opinion, was going to put pressure on the parallel market. Because once the value of the dollar is less than the dinar, that is going to go away. And they have a reflection of that now. And one of the things that we wanted to see, because of the way they're working on this, is that they're trying to get that parallel market to a parallel, or no, to be in par, for instance, with the official exchange rate, which is 13.10, 13.20 buy sell, right? But to do that, they were making a huge spread. They got it up from 13.10 to what I think 1600, real close, right, to the dinar. Well, now that's come down. Why? Because of the mechanisms that he put in place. The United States has decided that they weren't going to give dollars anymore, and so to the country for, in a sense, just halt them. So they have to use their own dollars that they have on stock. And so once those dollars are gone, that's probably why you're seeing some of this pressure. But here this article says that the dollar continues to fall in Iraq. And it says, is the market close to the official price? Question. So this expert, for instance, says that his name is Allah Al-Fahad. It says he predicts, so it's a prediction, that the dollar exchange rate in the Iraqi market will continue to decline in the coming period, pointing out that the gap between the two, the parallel market and the official exchange rate, and the parallel market price is approaching to existence. But that's a translation to me, because approaching non-existence. In other words, it's going to go away. That's the whole point. All right. So the Central Bank of Iraq took a number of measures in cooperation with banks, most notably financial commercial operations directly, which contributed to reducing the difference between the official price and the parallel market price. So they've done things specifically in commercial operations. So in other words, they have new systems in place and they have to abide by international rules and practices, international standards and practices. Okay. It says the central bank, that's the Central Bank of Iraq, has continued coverage of foreign trade, so they're covering it, and the sale of the dollar to banks on regular basis, which will push exchange rates in the parallel market to a further decrease. In other words, bring down that spread that they have the ability to make money. So the illegal market is having difficulty getting dollars, and now because of these circumstances, that's getting to the point where they're probably going to have a rude awakening. Anyway, I'll read it again. It says the central bank's continued coverage of foreign trade and the sale of the dollar to banks on a regular basis will push exchange rates in the parallel market to a further decrease and may soon see it reach the official price. So the expectations from experts are that what they're doing is working and it'll get it down to a in par with one another. Okay, and that's what we talked about. It's to be expected. That would be to be expected, because at some point in time, they're going to realize, the illegal people are going to realize that they're going to be at far more risk once they change the value of the currency. If they're all on the other side of the trade, they will have a rude awakening, and they're going to lose a lot of money. And they've been warned and warned and warned. And that's why I brought it up on my other video. We talked about some of the tribal people wanting to get money out of the country. Okay, they have selfish interests. That's just the way it is. But they know that if they have their money in their banks and they're what purchasing power and all the infrastructure and all the new things that they have is not enough for them. But that's just my view on that. But anyway, it says with the central bank's recent measures, so the things that the central bank's done, I think like what I've described, it says their expectations indicate a gradual return to stability and a narrowing of the price gap, because the central bank has been doing their job in guidance with the United States Treasury, in guidance with the Federal Reserve Bank, with the guidance of the World Bank, and guidance with the IMF. This isn't something new. All those latter things I mentioned have been involved for over 20 years, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor. The parallel market is about to lose its existence, and that's what they were referring to here at the very beginning, approaching to existence, which doesn't make sense, but to non-existence I think is what the translations work. So look, the illegal market is about to run its course. That's just 100% my view. The expectation of it getting eradicated completely, non-existent, I think that's happening in a very short period of time. And I think it can happen even faster if they change their exchange rate. If al-Sudani holds true to what he has said, that the Iraqi dinar is stronger than the dollar, and that's in Patreon, you'll see it, and everybody's been balking at that, but he said it, so it's on him. It's not me saying it just for fun. It's in print. But I don't think he was ever wrong. I think he knew exactly that the plan was to happen. But again, I've always said this, is that this is a complex issue. I've always said that it's about Iraq, but it's not all about Iraq. Because the impact that a revaluation will have on the region and trading partners and the world is going to be a part of this. So thinking it's only about Iraq, come on Iraq, turn it on, that isn't quite right. But because when they turn it on, everybody else needs to be ready for that. And that's when it comes to the central bank and the Bank of International Settlements. Because what is the Bank of International Settlements? I think you all know, is that the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of all central banks. They need to know. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, has a need to know. Iraq has sanctions on their currency. They haven't been allowed to go onto the Forex in an international capacity yet. But they just told us they were about to launch. Al-Alaq, the central bank governor, told us they were going to launch a digital dinar. Keep that in mind. Okay, next article is successful in advance. An analyst guy. It says the Arab Summit in Baghdad will not be like its predecessors. So they've had, I think, 44 of these in the years. Okay, so it's not new. This gentleman by the name of Fadlallah, he says that the upcoming Arab Summit in Baghdad will carry a different character and will not be like its predecessors, and pointing out that it represents a pivotal station in strengthening Iraq's economy. As far as the predecessors are concerned, I got a predator in my lap, and she just shows up and jumps in. So if you guys think there's a big weird spot in there, it is what it is. So look, when it comes to this, is that the basically what I just was getting at is that the Arab Summit, it represents a pivotal station in strengthening Iraq's regional presence and highlighting its diplomacy. So in holding this summit, in Baghdad is great importance at the internal and moral levels, and as it sends clear message to the world that Iraq is ready for its Arab and international role. And we've mentioned this many times, is that Iraq is taking her position back to her rightful spot. And I've said this many times. The Arab League, the Arab League is going to be part of Iraq's home, because that's where she has been for probably since the 1940s, when she 48, whatever, she became a state. So keep that up in your thinking, because what's taking place is real. And another thing that you have to think about is, what is national reconciliation? I suggest you look it up. If you don't, you really should, because it's part of what you own. And national reconciliation needs to be completed before they have regional reconciliation. And would you guys not believe that, or think that having this Baghdad summit is regional reconciliation with massive amounts of heads of state? Didn't al-Sudani meet with all kinds of heads of state in the region? Absolutely. They sure have. They met with Turkey, they met with Jordan, they've met with Egypt, they've met with Iran, they met with everybody. And they did it all pretty much back to back recently. And so that now they have set a date for the 17th to have this meeting in this summit. So it's very interesting. And then today you see that there's calls anyway that I have in print that are from a parliamentary committee member to push al-Sudani to ask the United States president to show up at this meeting. So will that ever happen? That's to be determined. But they're openly talking about it. We do know that if you're here in the United States anyway, and watching the media, that our U.S. president is going to be in the Middle East sometime soon. So anyway, it says the Iraqi government aspires through this summit to build real economic partnerships. So, okay, so they're still going to be working with partnerships into the future, because once Iraq does what she needs to do and what the international financial system is going to allow, you're going to see probably a big change. It goes, and this political analyst basically states that he says, today Iraq has a mature policy and significant military capabilities, as well as effective tools to bring countries closer and calm crises, which gives it a distinctive role in making stability in the region. Well, we've been talking about Iraq has security, stability, and sustainability. Everybody has. They've got the support from all of those entities. All the three-letter agencies that I mentioned are in the news and specifically state they're in support of this. So, or in support of Iraq at least. One thing we may want to keep in mind is the national reconciliation is not something that happens to a war-torn country quickly. It takes a long time. It doesn't just take weeks or months. It can take years. Iraq's been rebuilding their country for almost 20 years as you guys all know, a lot of people that have been invested have been around for 20 years, and sadly, a lot of them don't pay attention to what the present news shows, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. But again, if you look at other countries in the world that have had reconciliation, national reconciliation, you'll find one. I think the one that I found even this morning was the country of Nigeria. Okay, they had some really big problems in the past. Iraq had some really big problems in the past, and they still kind of do. But they're growing through them. But where they are at this level after 20 years is not what happened 2 years ago. It's not what happened 4, 6, 8, 10. It's different, and you can see the evidence, and that's why Patreon.com is so valuable, is because we bring all that kind of information to you. Basically, it says that they've worked through the political differences, their societal issues, the return of displaced refugees. They've had to create employment opportunities, private sector, public partnerships, things like that. Build out infrastructures. What I mean by infrastructures? Well, they have roads, they have highways, they have new electronic payment systems, they have new electronic taxation at the borders. Those are the types of things. They have e-government. The government's even doing electronic payments. Why? Because they're going after corruption. Same with the borders. All of that is all part of that infrastructure. They also need to gain international support. Well, I've already mentioned that all of those three-letter agencies have been in support. And what else does that mean? It just brings legitimacy, and they've done much, much more. That's what this is all about. Okay, so to gain the support of the region of Iraq would have to have national reconciliation. And they have to have national reconciliation before you're going to get regional reconciliation. Think about it. If you're going to have national reconciliation, or going to go have reconciliation with the region, and you don't have it at home, why? The stakeholders that are involved, that have been involved for over 20 years, 20 years at least, right? Well, they want to be satisfied. They want to be satisfied that their investment for the last 20 years that is going to be fruitful. So it's got to be in a satisfactory manner. That's all there is to it. And if you guys look it up, what the words mean, you're going to understand that you can see it happening in real time. Basically, it goes on and says, to me, the support from the region would have to have had national reconciliation, like I mentioned. It has to be accomplished at a level of completion so that everybody's satisfied. That's all there is to it. Everybody's going to need to be satisfied. And obviously, for all these people to be showing up on the 17th of this month, you would have to think that national reconciliation would be completed. And to have national reconciliation, in my view, is that you're going to have the ability to do international cross-border payments, and you're going to have to do it with, as they said, Al-Alaq said, they're going to have to launch the digital dinar. I don't know if there's going to be a component of this big announcement that we've been hearing about coming, if it has to do anything to do with specifically or indirectly, but I would imagine that some things that we've been talking about in the electronic age, the currency manipulation they talk about, which is part of what was wanted to be started back in early 2020, if that's a component of it, but I wouldn't be surprised, because they're talking about here in this particular case, because we're going to be talking about a digital environment. We're talking about blockchain ledger stuff. You guys, we all talked about XRP, and we talked about some of the crypto stuff. I'm not a crypto guy per se, but the bottom line is digital currencies, new technologies, artificial intelligence, all of that stuff, all of a sudden might just go pow in your face. And that's where we are. But here again, Raffidan Bank, state bank, right? Achieves more than 2 trillion dinars in electronic collections and settlements. So today, it says that Raffidan Bank has made a qualitative leap in the volume of electronic tax settlements implemented for government departments during the first third of 2025. So, look, they put in electronic payments, and one of the things that is going to be part of that is because of taxes, just like we've been talking about. So he basically is stating that what they've done reflects a clear improvement in the system's operational efficiency, enhanced government institutions, increased confidence in using electronic payment services through the Raffidan Bank, according to what the data supports. The bank emphasizes that achievement falls within the framework of its strategy to support the government's efforts to implement digital transformation plans, enhance government collection efficiency, and consolidate the principles of transparency and financial governance in line with the government directives to build a more integrated and effective financial system. Look, operational efficiency is very important when it comes to international trade. Operational efficiency, you got to have it. Raffidan Bank, their state, has proven the international financial institutions that the bank can function to par with international standards and practices, and all of that being considered, those two items are big. To have that, why do they have their support? Is because they are basically functioning at this level by using foreign currencies, using the system, not the dinar, but the dollar, yen, won, euro, the pound. Okay, they've been using those correspondent banks to facilitate trade. And so that's why you see that. But what they're really looking for is to have the dinar be part of that. The bank is fully operational, and their electronic payment systems are obviously up to snuff and to a global scale level at this time. So I think that is obviously very, very telling. And then today, what do we have? We have the President of the Republic of the Governor of the Central Bank. It says the need to develop a sound future strategy for fiscal policy. So the President, Abdel Latif Jamal Rashid, Wednesday, he met with the Central Bank Ali Alak at the Baghdad Palace to discuss the state of Iraqi banking sector and the measures to develop it, as well as to reform packages being undertaken by the central bank to address economic changes that impact their local markets. The president goes on and says the need to exert efforts and develop a sound future strategy for fiscal policy will enhance the desired economic development. The meeting discussed plans to stimulate the investment sector by supporting the private sector. So there's the private sector and in the investment sector, right? Especially as the country is witnessing remarkable stability, security, political, and social levels. That's what they're at. That's what they're talking about. That's about reconciliation. I bet you if you go and look up national reconciliation or even regional reconciliation, you're going to find that stability is a key component, security is a big deal, political and social, societal issues are involved. That's what's been happening for the last 20 years. This isn't new, but they're at that level. Again, I'm going to say this, if they have national reconciliation, they'll be able to have regional reconciliation. And to me, regional reconciliation is huge and it's on the table. Okay. Al-Alak reviewed the central bank's efforts and future plans aimed at strengthening fiscal policy and economic stability in the country. All right, that's basically the end of that article. But my view is Rashid and Al-Alak having a little sit-down talk today is really pretty, it's kind of big. Why? Well, it's having an effective exchange rate in place. That's what I think what they're going to do. If they have a real effective exchange rate in place with international utility, will likely help and stimulate the investment sector. Having an international tradable dinar for cross-border payments will go a long way in making sure the investment sector has a stable environment and on many levels of security and the political side of things and on the economic and social levels. Basically, let's hope they had a good talk. I think they would have a good talk, especially at this stage of the game preceding this summit that they're working on. and have set a date for. Baghdad on the cusp of a historic event. So they're talking about a historic event that's coming up. The Arab Summit convenes amid regional hopes and daunting challenges. Well, there's a lot of things still going on in the Middle East, but anyway, it says Baghdad is preparing to welcome Arab leaders on May 17th as it hosts the 34th Arab League Summit, a momentous event eagerly anticipated by the Arab and regional communities alike. This hosting comes from the intensive diplomatic efforts made by Baghdad over the past years, just as I've been talking about, to strengthen its regional position and restore its pivotal role in the region, witnessing rapid transformations and complex challenges. It goes on and says that Baghdad's hosting of the Arab Summit represents a historic moment for Iraq and reflects the Arab country's confidence. So the Arab country's confidence in its ability to play an active role in addressing regional issues. So taking that stage back to where she was is just, it's phenomenal. Okay, the source adds that the Iraq attaches the utmost importance to the summit and seeks to come up with the practical and tangible decisions that contribute to strengthening Iraq and Arab solidarity and unifying ranks to confront common challenges. And then it goes on and says that a message from unity and solidarity out of Baghdad. It says political and cultural circles in Iraq believe that Baghdad's hosting of the Arab Summit carries a powerful message, affirming Iraq's return to its natural place at the heart of the Arab world, and reflects that the Iraqi people's aspirations to play a constructive role in strengthening Arab unity and solidarity. I don't know about you guys, but this event should be taken very seriously. Iraq has come a long way for the past 2 to 3 years, especially over the past 2 years. I would imagine this summit will be a historic one, as they say, as I believe it will. Okay, Iraq to restore her position in the region will be a pivotal accomplishment towards security and stability in the region. And they already have been talking about the fact that they've been doing this for some time. But again, they're focusing in on it. Okay, and there is a deal with the USA and Iran prior to the event, if there is. If I said there is a deal prior to, would just go even further with supporting this happening. And then we saw that J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, talked about having a deal that could be done. They didn't say when, didn't say before, didn't say after. He just said they feel that it's going to be positive, and it's going to be. The implications are in the room. Come in and read it. You guys can see it in Patreon and read it for yourself. Exactly his words in a quote. I would recommend you doing that. All right. Here's another article, though, on the Arab Monetary Fund organizes the 44th meeting of the Arab Banking Supervision Committee on May 7th and 8th. Guess what? Well, today's the 7th. And don't you see how we just talked about Rashid and Al-Alaq, the president of the country, talking about the banking reform, financial reforms from the central bank? Where was Al-Alaq? Didn't Al-Alaq wasn't he the central bank governor for quite a few years, and then he went off and was one of the board members to the Arab Monetary Fund? Absolutely. And now he's back doing what? He's finishing what he couldn't finish, I guess, at the time. But here it is today, Rashid today, and now we have the Arab Monetary Fund talking about. The committee emanates from the Board of Governors of the central banks and Arab monetary institutions, includes the membership of directors and officials of banking supervision and the Arab Monetary Fund. The committee's meetings as observers is attended by representatives of the Union of Arab Banks, General Secretariat of the Cooperation Council of the Arab States of the Gulf, that's probably the GCC, and the Islamic Development Bank Group. A representative of the BAL Committee on Banking Supervision will also participate in the meeting. All these banks have requirements that are set out when the Basel III takes place. And that's coming up they have to have it done by, I believe, the deadline is the 25th of July. So I'm not saying that that's when they'll have it done or this to wait. All I'm saying is that there's been grace periods with Basel III requirements. Some people call it Basel III, but I think it's properly called Basel. But hey, they had to have it done by specific timeframes, and they have moved those timeframes over the years. This initiative has been coming around for a long, long time. So giving grace, that's what they do sometimes. But I think at this time, I don't think that's going to be the case. It says His Excellency, the Director General and Chairman of the Board of the Directors of Arab Monetary Fund, Dr. Fahad bin Mohammed Al Turki, praised the efforts of the Arab central banks. Iraq is one of those central banks, and monetary institutions in controlling the conditions of the financial banking sector, enhancing its safety, and developing legislation, policies, and precautionary measures, and applying the best international standards and practices, and also praising the topics dealt with the committee. All right, so Iraq's part of that, so just keep that in mind. And in my view, it's interesting to see that this meeting took place today and tomorrow. It's going to be taking place today and tomorrow. And then we saw Rashid Al-Alaq had a meeting today with the banks, and here's a quote from that meeting. The President of the Republic received the Governor of the Central Bank, Ali Al-Alaq, at the Baghdad Palace to discuss the state of Iraqi banking sector and the measures to develop it, as well as reform packages undertaken by the central bank to address economic changes and their impact on the local market. Some of those things that are going to have an impact on the local market would be to be getting rid of the parallel market, that shadow economy. That's what they've been working on. It says there is a theme that is taking place between the governors of central banks regarding international standards and practices. Absolutely, Iraq's been working on all of that. The Central Bank of Iraq and the Union of Arab Banks are well underway in undertaking international standards and practices. We all know that. I think we do. The representative of the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision participating in the meeting may be a telltale sign, if you will, that banks participating in the meetings are in compliance with Basel III. We'll see. Time's running out for the banks to compliance because why? Well, Basel III is an international banking regulation developed by the Basel Committee, Banking Supervision. This got started back in 2007, 2009. You come in and read my snippet. Key aspects, talks about increased capital requirements. You guys will see that when you look it up. Leverage ratio. It talks about liquidity requirements. Counter-cyclical capital buffers. It talks about supervisory review and market discipline. Okay? But at the end of the day, it opens a new tab with Basel III. It also emphasizes the importance of strong supervisory oversight and market discipline to ensure that banks adhere to new regulations. So everybody's got to be paying attention. Basel III has been implemented in various countries already, with the U.S. implementing its version known as Basel III Endgame. I find that's pretty cool. And when? In July 2025, and that came from Ernst & Young. And who's been working with the Rafidain and Rashid banks? Ernst & Young. So you guys take all this very seriously and enjoy, and think of it as powerful. You got some big things happening in the world. And look who is a bigger thing in the world. Okay, you got to go. So hey, you guys, if you like my content and if you like winning, hit that like button. I don't know where Wally is, but he would say subscribe. Thank you guys for being with us, and we really do appreciate all your support. And have a great week. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.